Hello, Darklings! I'm going to do a reading today using this beautiful deck. This is the Dark Angels Tarot, and it's by Luca Russo. Beautiful dark deck. Alright, so I'm going to do a reading about the infamous Elisa Lam and the situation surrounding her very unfortunate murder. If you're not familiar with the case, in a nutshell, she was a young woman from Canada who was visiting Los Angeles on her own, and she stayed in a very unfortunate, infamous hotel in Skid Row. I can't remember the name of the place. It's the same one where Richard Ramirez did some of his nastiness. It's quite notorious for murder, sexual violence, drugs, a lot of unsavory businesses going on there. And she stayed there all by herself because it was probably on the cheap. And she was found in the water tank on the roof of the hotel, dead. And as far as I recall, also nude. And because she had been up there in the water tank for several days, a lot of the physical evidence was destroyed, washed away, and her death was ruled, strangely enough, an accident. But anybody who has familiarized themselves with this case knows that poor Elisa was murdered. So we are going to do a reading today about Elisa Lam and the situation that led up to her untimely death. This is all alleged and for entertainment purposes only. Here we go. Oh, okay. Adjust my camera a little bit here. Okay, so what we've got here is the King of Cups reversed in the position of the mind. So it seems to me that she had definitely had in mind a romantic interest, because the King of Cups is very much about romance, emotions, the heart of the poet, dreamy, hopeless romantic type figure. And it seems to me that she had in mind an ideal for a romantic relationship with this man that turns out was a misjudgment. I see here with the Page of Wands, this card is really interesting in the position of the body. It's talking a lot. The Page of Wands is very much about progression into the future, bringing messages into the future. It can also be about messages from the dead, which I find is really interesting, and in this sense almost an omen of death, because it is bodily. It is here in the realm of the physical. specifically in conjunction with her body, that I feel like there may have been some red flags, some warning signs to her that she was actually in physical danger. That gives me chills. She was receiving messages, signs, red flags, omens that she was in a definitely a state of physical danger, that death was a risk to her. And I also feel like physically she took this trip because she had plans for the future. This was part of a greater scheme of plans, possibly even with the idea of relocation. Maybe she had ideas, plans to relocate to America, to Los Angeles. I don't know that for sure. Again, this is allegedly, it's all for entertainment purposes only, but I feel like maybe potentially she was looking into the future and making plans to physically change something, whether it was about entering into a physical, again, could have been a physical relationship, her plans to have a physical relationship, the plans potentially to physically relocate herself, move forward into the future. But there were definitely signs to her, communications to her, that this is not a good plan. This is bad news. Here we have the King of Wands right next to the page. And this is in the position of the emotion. This is in the emotional house here. And the King of Wands is very much about power, passion, direction, directness, moving swiftly. And I feel like she was definitely having emotional feelings of passion. And again, I think this ties in here with the expectation of romance with the King of Cups, where she misjudged this man and things didn't quite go as passionately as she had hoped. But emotionally, she was feeling extremely impassioned. She had very strong emotions that were going on during this time of her life, the last days of her life in this situation. There was a lot of very heated emotions, potentially even some argumentation. The king of wands is a power figure. It's someone who is in charge, in control, moving forward, doesn't take the opinions of others to heart. He knows what he's doing. He's in charge here. And I feel like emotionally, she was really overpowered by her emotional feelings and was kind of turning off, tuning out to any kind of wisdom or any kind of influence from other people around her saying, well, maybe this isn't such a good idea. Maybe you want to be more cautious. She was like, no, I've got a plan. I've got passion for this. I know what I want. My feelings are on fire and I'm moving forward. And so I feel like she took this trip with really a passionate, almost even manic type of emotional response. Probably to the detriment of her physical health here, because there were warning signs that she did not heed because they were being overridden, overpowered by her emotional passion. And what can I say about this? I mean, is this not the most clear thing you have ever seen? This is the Ten of Swords in the house of the environment. This card speaks for itself. So she finds herself in this situation now with absolute ruin. Falling into a kind of despair, feeling completely overwhelmed. And since this is in the house of the environment, this is definitely not only suggesting a potential death, but I think it's also about how when she got to this hotel, when she got to this location, it was not what she was expecting at all. She had these big passionate plans. She was like, I'm moving forward in the future. I'm going to have this romance. She gets to this scuzzball hotel and is like, oh no, what have I done? Everything starts to fall apart as soon as she arrives to this location. This was the beginning of the end. This was the beginning of the undoing. She was surrounded by sorrow and suffering and peril. Definitely putting herself into a position of a high risk of physical danger. I'm not blaming Elisa for what happened to her. Absolutely. I am not insinuating that she was responsible for being murdered. No one is responsible for being murdered. But she did make some decisions that led her to be in a situation where she was in imminent physical danger. Here we have the King of Swords in the position of the mind. The King of Swords is a very headstrong man. He is his own authority. Being reversed here, I feel that this man who she was involved with definitely saw himself as being above the law. He's the kind of guy who will do whatever is necessary to get what he wants. He doesn't care about the rules. He doesn't care about the law. He's above that. He's very sharp in his words. He's very intelligent as well. He's a rule breaker, this guy. He's a bit of a bad boy, but dangerous because he is not concerned with the legal ramifications of his actions. So this guy, bit of a danger. I feel like maybe even a dangerous narcissist, because this is all about his own mental perceptions. So this romantic situation here that she was hoping for, that involved a lot of misjudgment, was with this reversed King of Swords. He's a dangerous dude. And I feel like she was not fully and completely aware of just how dangerous, because he was not open about it. He was not fully open about who he really was, what he was really about, what he really wanted, which I think we can all make some assumptions there about what that might have been. Self-serving. He's very selfish, very narcissistic type of guy who's dangerous because he doesn't feel that he has to answer for his actions. He's above all that. Allegedly, for entertainment purposes only. So here we have the Six of Cups. And this is in the position of the body. This card is really talking about loneliness. That, physically, I feel like both Elisa and this guy, they were both very lonely physically. They wanted to have a physical relationship. They wanted to have some intimacy in their lives that they had before. They wanted to kind of rekindle some feelings of intimacy that had been missing in their lives, and they had a kind of an emptiness. They wanted to fill the cup with physical intimacy. And I believe that this was definitely at the core of her reasons for why she went on this trip to Los Angeles. It was definitely to meet this guy. It was a secret relationship, and it was kindled by both of them having feelings of loneliness and wanting someone. So the next card here is the Eight of Wands. And this is in the House of the Emotions, and this card is talking a lot about the conservation of energy and that the overexpenditure of emotional energy is going to leave you completely drained. So I feel like all of this intense emotional passion that she had going on, from the reasons of why she went on this journey, what was really behind everything was this intense burning emotional passion, this fire that was driving her forward emotionally. It was exhausting and it was impossible to maintain it. And when she realized at the point, like, oh fuck, this guy's no good, allegedly, she crashed. She just completely emotionally crashed, and this left her in a very vulnerable place emotionally. I also think that potentially, allegedly, she could have been having a lot of depression. This definitely is indicating feeling emotionally drained, leading to a dangerous type of emotional depression, a very serious situation here emotionally. And now we have here the Four of Wands. Lots of little details in this card. So this is talking about, this is in the place, the house of the environment. And this is card normally upright would be talking about the fulfillment and rest after a goal is obtained. But because we have a reversal here, things did not go according to plan. She had a goal, she had a plan, she had desires, she had, fantasies. Everything was like, yes, moving forward, we're going to do this, I'm going to do this in the future, I've got plans, I've got goals, it's going to work out with me and this romance with this guy. And no, everything went wrong. And this is not so much about rest, but about crashing down. This is about a forced stop. Full stop. The house is upside down. Everything is just crashing, overwhelmed by everything going on. She's in this situation now on her own, feeling depressed, feeling emotionally drained, spent, feeling empty, lonely, being mentally manipulated by this guy, by the King of Swords. And now she's in this environment which has become dangerous, which has become some reckless choices, some hopeless romantic ideals. Now we've come to this place here, allegedly for entertainment purposes only, where environmentally she is put in a position of standing still, stagnation. There's no plan now. The map is gone. Everything is chaos environmentally. I feel like also this was talking about, with this card here, about how she was now environmentally in a very physically dangerous position. I feel like now she's realized, oh shit, I could be in trouble here. There's some scary dudes. There's some scary people. This hotel is a bit creepy to me now. Everything is a bit chaotic and a bit scary. And she doesn't have a plan of action to take her out of this situation now. Oh. Oh no. Nine of Pentacles. Oh, these are so slippery. Stop sliding, please. Nurturing, this is in the position of the mind, nurturing, building a garden for what was once barren. Okay, so now she's like, I got to come up with a new plan. I got to refresh, reboot, and reseed and start over. So she's come to this point now of accepting this guy's no good. I'm kind of stuck in this dangerous situation, but I got to come up with a new plan. I can get myself out of this. I can plant new seeds and come up with a new plan of action. So she's in the point now where she's considering other options of how can I turn this around? How can I, mentally refresh myself and reboot this situation? So here we have judgment in the position of the body. I feel like this was, I'm getting such a horrible feeling off of this, I can tell you guys. I feel like this guy had made a sort of, he was treating her very possessively. I feel like in a connection with all of these previous cards that I drew here, that he was being very physically possessive of her. He was almost, I want to say, a stalker, allegedly for entertainment purposes only. I feel like this guy was stalking her. He had made a judgment, physically, you're mine, you belong to me. Okay, so Page of Pentacles. Emotionally, as you can see here in the card, it's like holding a beacon in the dark. Having a light, carrying that light yourself to light your own way. And reversed, this breaks my heart, you guys. This breaks my heart. It seems like she had been so overwhelmed with everything going on and dealing with this emotional crash and this deep depression. She lost hope. Emotionally, she started to really come into a dark place. And although she was like, I gotta figure a way out of this, I gotta figure a way forward, I gotta make new plans, emotionally, she was completely despondent. She was really blocked, guys. Really blocked, feeling like I don't have any light to guide myself. I don't know what to do. Oh. So now we've got the Seven of Wands. And the Seven of Wands is talking about walking a dark path. Now, this is the environment. Walking a dark path and walking it alone. And the fact that these two cards here are together tells me so much. This tells me that she was feeling completely alone, completely isolated, completely just lost. She was going down a narrow, dark path, and she was like, I don't see a way out of this. I feel like this card as well is a little bit about environmental manipulation. The fact that she was in the situation where she was surrounded by a lot of chaos, a lot of negativity, a lot of physical danger. She was in a very high risk situation environmentally. It really narrowed the options for her as far as how to get the fuck out of this situation, allegedly. And the fact that this card is talking a lot to me about that she was potentially in a situation where she was being stalked and manipulated, possibly even gaslighted by this guy, that she was like, I don't know how to get out of this. Like, she was kind of stuck because she was like, no matter where I go, he's going to follow me. Okay, last pull. we have the Knight of Pentacles in the position of the mind. I feel like this card is potentially talking about optimism. At the very end here, she had come to a place of, I've got a burden to carry, and I've got to be decisive, and I gotta be smart, and I gotta be direct, and I gotta be honest, and feeling a slight rekindling of optimistic thoughts that, okay, I am walking down this dark road, I'm all by myself, I'm being stalked by this guy allegedly for entertainment purposes only, but I can get through this. I just got to be smart. I got to think my way through. And I think as well, this card talking about, bearing the burdens, I think is, realizing I may have made some really shitty impulsive decisions, and now I'm in a situation and I got to be smarter, and I got to be more cautious, I got to be more clever, and I got to own the things that I've done and move forward. And trying to reconcile some of these choices, some of these situations, and feeling like, well, I got to change my thinking here and try to make the best of it. And again, I am by no means insinuating that she was responsible for her death. The only person responsible for the death of Elisa Lam is the person who killed her. I will say, however, that she was feeling some personal responsibility about maybe I should have been a little more cautious, kind of reflecting on some of her previous choices that led her into situations where she found herself at risk, where she found herself manipulated, where she found herself perhaps lied to, that this guy is not who she was hoping he was going to be. And now she's got all these feelings of hopelessness and depression, walking this narrow path through danger, through chaos. And she's like, I can think my way out of this. I'm a smart woman. I just got to keep my head. Darklings, this card makes me so sad. Trigger warning, folks. I see in this card here the Ace of Swords in the position of the body, reversed. I think in this situation that this card is indicating that she was sexually abused by somebody in this situation, that she was taken advantage of, potentially, allegedly, that she was raped. And yuck, 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 yuck. And I think that this is also, coming back to that this guy thinks he's above the law. He thinks whatever, he wants is his. He thinks that he owns her. He thinks he's entitled. And he's lonely. He wants to be fulfilled. That's awful. Okay. And again, it may not have been the same dude, because she is in this situation at this hotel where it is a notorious location for a lot of violent crime, for a lot of, unsavory people. This is, the environment itself. She may have, in trying to turn it around, gotten herself involved with some other people who took advantage of her physically because she was in such a state mentally and emotionally. And, maybe she's like, hey, I've got this weird guy who's creeping on me. She goes to, find port in a storm with somebody else who takes great physical advantage of her. But I feel it's this guy. It's this dude who she had gone to meet originally. So here we have the Page of Cups. This card is talking a lot about servitude, coercion. This is in the position of the environment, or excuse me, emotions here. And I feel like absolutely 100% allegedly she was being emotionally manipulated, emotionally coerced. She was extremely vulnerable emotionally, extremely fragile emotionally, and was being taken advantage of, was being coerced. And these two go hand in hand in this situation. And finally, we have the reversed Empress. She was not in control of the situation. She was not in a position of power or in any way able to defend or protect herself, not with her wits, not physically, not even emotionally, from this coercion and manipulation. I think that ultimately, this is saying ultimately what led to the end for her was having no power and no control, and was completely at the mercy of other people and their bad actions and their bad choices. So I think that this is definitely clarifying here that I feel that these cards are giving some clarity to the fact that this was a murder that was fueled by sexual and emotional coercion, this guy who thinks he's above it all. He presented a false image of himself to her to lure her in. She ended up feeling hopeless, in despair, oppressed, lost, and in danger, and ultimately came to having no control over the situation, being completely controlled and manipulated, being completely at the mercy of other people, allegedly, potentially this guy. And I think that, in my opinion, this is alleged for entertainment purposes only. In my opinion, Elisa Lam was lured there under the promise of a great future, financial gains, a stable, loving relationship, passion, and what she ended up finding was a narcissistic, cruel, sadistic manipulator who was a rapist and a murderer. And I don't think he feels bad about it at all. I think he feels like he got away with it. He's fine with it. He got what he wanted, and he's moved on. So, my ghouls, take a moment to think of Elisa Lam and give a good thought for her, for what that's worth. Nobody deserves to end up murdered and abused and put in a water tower. No one deserves that. No one is responsible for being murdered. The only person who's responsible is the person who murdered her, and he's a scumbag. He's a bad guy. And I hope someday that there will be clarity on this case. I hope someday that someone will come forward with information. It's certainly not going to be this guy. He is never going to admit it. He will never own up to it. He's like, I got away with it and I'm fine with it. I hope someday that somebody comes forward and brings to light some information on this case so that Elisa Lam can have some justice, because she certainly deserves it. She certainly deserves it. Well, thank you for joining me today for this tarot reading. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you are enjoying the spooky season of October leading up to Halloween. Have a safe spooky season, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Bye.